Hey there, Streakers. Welcome to the Streaking Podcast. Today, Jami and I are going to be talking with you about something that, kind of got under my skin. I was listening to a particular podcast, and they were commenting on how, when they become teenagers, they never want to talk to you anyway. And teenagers, they hate you and want to get away from you. I have a real issue with that, and we're going to talk about that today. So, without further ado, let's start streaking.
Hi, Jeff.
Hello, Miss Jami.
How are you?
I'm good. This is an interesting topic that we have to talk about today because you and I, been parents for 30 years, we have 7 children. I guess not had, we still have them. They're just
Our
last adults.
Number 7 became a teenager this year. Last year.
The end of last year.
Yeah.
So we've had 7 now teenagers.
Yes, we have. And so 5 are now not teenagers anymore, and 2 still are teenagers, but yeah.
Right. So I was listening to a podcast, and the emphasis of the podcast was not on teenagers, just so you know. It was on a totally different topic. However, the individual who was being interviewed said 2 or 3 times, teenagers don't, they're not going to talk to you when they become teenagers anyway, and so you might as well do everything with them now. Or teenagers, they hate you and they want to get away from you. And I've found that this is a common refrain that is given through many different mediums, through television, through the podcast that we talk about. Many times parents will say that, and it's almost this given, they're going to be awful, so we've just got to prepare for that. And Jami and I, in our experience, have not found that to be the case. In fact, what we've found is that the teenage years can be some of the most fun and enjoyable years that you ever have as a parent. And so that got us to talking about, what makes it miserable? When have we found it miserable teaching or being with teenagers?
Why is that?
Yeah, what is it for us that's caused that problem? And what have we done to combat it?
Right. And I think I'm so glad that we're talking about this, and I'm so excited to talk about it because I agree with you. I think it is a complete misconception and a wrong way to approach teenagers with the idea that it's just going to be an awful experience, that there's going to be conflict and contention all the time. And because it's not true. There's a lot of amazing things that happen in the teenage years. Not that I'm going to discount or dismiss or disagree with the truth that there are challenges in the teenage years. But there's a lot that we can do as parents to work together as a team and not have it be an adversarial situation. And I think that's kind of what we wanted to talk about today.
Because as I look at the teenagers that we've had, you and I together, there's a lot of fun, exciting memories. There is, to your point, some points where it was difficult.
Right.
And I look at those difficult points as I had to change the way I was going about what it is, how I was interacting with our teenagers. I wasn't necessarily looking to them to change. And I think that's one of the points. I know we don't have that written down as far as,
but that is one of the
things. But I wanted to talk about that particular point.
Mm-hmm.
Is I have found that when I want them to change is when it becomes something of a contentious point rather than looking at myself and how I need to change.
And that is a basic truth that we can use in any relationship, that we do not have the ability to make other people change, no matter what. We can have influence, but where does that influence always start? It always starts with ourselves. We do have the absolute power and ability to change ourselves. We can change the way we think about things. We can change the way that we respond to situations. We can learn more. We have the ultimate power to change ourselves. But we don't have the power to make other people change.
We can, and here's one of the areas of contention. I think that you can
control a situation
and tell them this is how it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And because I'm the parent and you're the child, you're going to do it this way. And they may, in that moment, comply because they're either compelled to or they're like, yeah, I don't want to do the fight, so I'm just going to whatever. But the idea is that I'm trying to control, or I'm trying to change their behavior through control, which I found every time I've ventured down that path, it's not worked out well for
and
me.
I think the reason we're starting with this is because this is something that throughout the years I have said to myself again and again and again, is that I'm not going to make them change. If they're going to change, if there's something that is really happening that I'm like, this needs to change, they have to want to change.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen because I compelled them to do it or because I put enough rules in place. And I'm not saying that rules and boundaries don't have a place. They absolutely do. But I think it's really important that we understand that our children have to do the things that they do because they want to do them.
Right.
Because we're not going to be with them forever. and especially during teenager years, I think that's why sometimes the teenage years can be difficult as a parent, because it is that time where ultimately they spend more time away from you. They have more experiences that don't include you, that you may not be aware of, things that are happening, and they are now starting to have the cognitive ability to analyze those decisions, to look at it differently. I think that it's really important. It kind of starts when they're like 2 or 3 years old that they start to become self-aware. And I think that it absolutely peaks in their teenage years where they're really, and I think it's important to recognize that that is an important process to go through. Like, as a person, you need to start to become self-aware. And those early years, as they're starting, we teach through those experiences how to, yes, be aware of yourself, but also to be aware of others. And in those teenage years, that's when I think it becomes so poignant of a time in life, because they are now cognitively aware and have an ability to start to see other people outside of themselves. But it's a hard thing to do. It takes effort. It takes intentionality. And there's a lot of forces that are impacting them. There's a lot of outside forces that are affecting the way that they think, and the fact that they aren't fully mature yet. However, the experiences that they're having as teenagers are so important. I often think you have a limited amount of time that your children are within your home, and you want them to have as many experiences practicing the skills that you want them to have as adults as possible while they're in your home. You don't want them to be perfect at those experiences. You don't want every situation to go off perfectly, because that's not real life. And so I think sometimes we shy away as parents from letting them have the experiences because we're afraid. We want that experience. We don't want them to get hurt, or we want to make sure things go well. And if we can tweak our thinking to look at it and be like, this is their time to practice. And just like every musical instrument, the practice is long and often unpleasant in those beginning years. But as they practice more...
Lily with ballerina. I mean, we went through a lot of recitals that were painful.
And piano.
And then she turned into this beautiful ballerina where we loved, I mean, just every year the Nutcracker, I couldn't wait when she was...
go. But it takes a lot of practice. And so if we can look at those teenage years as this is their opportunity to practice within a realm where I can see it, and they can have a place that's safe to practice because they have family that loves them and is here to support them. But if we look at it as practice instead of this idea of you have to pass this test, I think that, is that making sense?
Mm-hmm. One of the areas as you talk, one of the things I think about, the principle that I follow is I try to remember what I was like at that stage of life, when I was back at that stage of life, whether it be where Chance is now with 13 or all the way through to Bowen, who's 17, 18. Going on to 18, or he is 18 now. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What did I feel like through all of those? And if I were in my teenager's shoes right now, what would I be feeling, thinking, striving diligently to know and understand? And sometimes knowing that I had no clue, because like what you said, my hormones are all over the place. My brain is still developing. There's still opportunity for learning and growth. And I don't have all of the knowledge, vision to know and understand and make a decision in the best way possible. So that's what, as a parent, what I look at then is, okay, what information can I provide my child so that they can make the absolutely best decision possible?
Absolutely.
And sometimes that decision is going to be different than how I would decide. But most important is that I speak candidly and directly to them about all of everything that I see. For example, there was one of our daughters in the high school years, came down the stairs dressed in something that I was like, whoa. I don't know that I would be encouraging wearing that to school. And as she came down the stairs, I thought to myself, okay, there's a couple of ways that I can handle this. One, go back upstairs immediately and change.
You are not wearing that to school.
You are not wearing that to school. Control. Okay, that's a control move. You're not going to wear that to school. I'm the parent. You're the child. You go do this now. So that's number one. Number two is, whoa, you're wearing that to school? In other words, immediately attacking their identity and who they feel they are and what they saw in the mirror.
And a little bit of shaming them, a little bit of embarrassing.
I'm going to shame you into this. Again, another way to manipulate or control.
The hard one about that is that as a parent, sometimes you need to not say the first thing that you think.
This is what we call the Janet Downs principle.
This is Jeff's mom, and this was great. As a young mom, she told me, she looked me straight in the face and she said, when you have teenagers, you want them to be able to talk to you. And so she said, the trick is whatever you're feeling inside, don't let it show on your face. Yeah. And the words that come out of your mouth.
My mom was great at it.
She was. And the words that come out of your mouth are, oh. And that's it. You don't.
Okay. I'm listening.
I'm listening, because you want them to keep talking. And if they see the shock on your face, sometimes you're going to shut them down. And then you're not going to know everything that you're dealing with.
Yeah.
I have circled back to that so many times.
Oh, yeah.
So your daughter comes down the stairs wearing something and you're like, oh.
Okay. But it's not even an oh, like, it's just a...
Just to know.
This is what she's wearing.
This is what she's wearing. Keep all of those thoughts inside of your brain for right now.
And it is difficult to do. It's a skill.
It takes a skill
to be able
practice.
To do that.
Yes.
So the third thing is looking at it and saying, I'm going to be direct and honest with you. Mm-hmm. And in other words, and this is, I think, goes to one of our first points in regards to treating each child with respect, that they are their own person. That it may feel like they're an extension of us. It may feel like they are somehow feeling all the same things that I feel. In actuality, they're not. They're feeling it differently. They're feeling it in different ways.
And I want to tangent because I want to get back to your story.
Yeah.
But we have 3 daughters all in a row, and they were relatively close in age. And oftentimes when I was a young mom and would go out, when they were, I think Megan was about 5 or 6, people would sometimes ask me if they were triplets, even though once you looked closer, you could see that they
weren't triplets.
But that's how much they looked alike.
They
looked very much alike. And because I was a mom and I was a young mom and of young children, you get going and doing all of the things that you need to do to get out the door. And I recognized at one point that I was treating all 3 daughters as a group. They were the girls. And I wish I could remember the experience that happened, but there was something that happened that made me step back and realize that I have 3 separate individuals here. And that though they looked alike, and though they looked a lot like me, they weren't exactly like me, and they didn't think like me. And that I needed to recognize that each one of them had a different personality.
Today, they couldn't be more different.
And it's interesting.
You've got a lawyer, an artist, and a world traveler.
Yes.
Those are your top
joined the Peace Corps. They are
so different.
Very different. And it's so you and I attend a parenting class or seminar.
We attended it, yeah.
When we were young, taught by the Ayers. Do you remember his name? It was Linda Ayer and...
I don't. I'm sorry.
We should have looked that up.
This is fantastic.
But we'll look it up. But the thing Richard and Linda Ayer.
Yes.
The thing that we remembered the most about that parenting seminar was they said, when your children come to you, they come as little seeds. And he said, the seeds of a tree can often look alike, But as they grow, they become very different trees.
Because even when they're young, that just like, and I think that was such a great illustrative point that you made as far as all three look the same. I mean, they're pretty
And
much
they're
in the same developmental age.
Yes,
and so they're doing the same things.
And as a mom, in order to get to the places that we needed to do, I was acting as, this is our group. Let's go as a group. We need to, and sometimes it's easier to be like, let's all be doing the same thing, because I can't be in 4 places at once. I can only be in one. So we're all going to be doing the same thing. And there's a benefit and understanding to that. But it was crucial that I recognized that they weren't a group. They weren't the girls. It was Megan. It was Rose. It was Natalia. Each one of them was a different person. And though they may be similar right now because of the ages and stages and development that they're experiencing, my job as a parent was to nurture them to grow into the tree that they were going to be.
I think I want to pause right there on that point. The tree that they were going to be, not the tree that you wanted them to be.
Yes.
And I think that is, in the teenage years, nurturing what they want to become is so much more fun than trying to control what I want them to become. I mean, every conflict that I see that is portrayed in any number of dramas or even in real life has to do with, I'm going to control what it is you do. You need to. I mean, those words right there. You need to this. You need to that. Whatever it is, put in the blank. At that moment is where conflict and really contention, because there's going to be conflict, and I want to make a distinction between those two. But contention enters in, and it's going to be like, oh, no, you're not going to control me. And the parent, oh, yes, I am. Whereas if it's like, okay, who are they trying to become? What is it that they want to do? So,
and it's an interesting thing to look at, the words you need to.
Yeah.
Because it's an assumption, and we're going to talk about this in a later podcast, of the covert communication. What you're communicating, you may be saying one thing, but what's really being said is something completely different. And I think the words you need to are the ultimate in covert communication, because you may be saying you need to put a jacket on because it's cold outside. And what the child is hearing is, you think you know everything about me, but you don't. I don't know if I need a jacket. Or I don't know if I'm going to be cold.
Right. So or you're weak and you need my guidance. When in actuality, they're not. They're strong. They're intelligent. They have a lot of great opportunity to make decisions, which is fantastic.
Which leads me to another foundation, and we're circling back to your story. I know, but this is part of that story. Is that one of my basic tenets and things, again, these are things that I literally talk to myself as a parent. Like, you have to talk to yourself and be like, okay. It's
the Jami inside talking to the Jami outside.
So that the Jami outside handles it a little bit better than the Jami inside. But the Jami inside is constantly saying, your job as a parent is to give them knowledge, not to make the decision for them. My job being further down the road in experience, having a little bit more vision, and I say that intentionally, I have more vision, but I don't have all of the vision. I don't know everything about my child. I don't know every experience that they're going to have. I think that's kind of hard to
recognize.
It is. You want to know.
Because you think that you do. But in actuality, they're having experiences and other things that are outside of your sight, my sight, and those experiences are shaping them as well.
So recognizing that my job is to give them as much knowledge as I possibly can so that they can make a good decision. It's not to...
You know what it is?
And it's not to...
Because we've kind of... I got to interrupt on this just a little bit, because we've said it's not even to make a good decision. It's to make a decision. They have to have all the knowledge to be able to make a decision. Because it may be good, it may be bad, but they need the knowledge that we have to make a decision.
And as a parent, that is part of our responsibility. I think it is negligent of a parent to have knowledge and not share that. It's negligent. Like, if we know things, we should share that with people. How we do that is also a skill, and one that is worth spending a lifetime learning how to do through good and not so good experiences, and listening to other people and learning how to share knowledge in a way that is accepted. But a huge part of being a parent of teenagers is asking questions.
I think more so than it accepted, it's just that it can be listened to.
Yes.
It's not immediately
and not
blocked.
offensive.
Yeah,
yes.
it's not offensive. It's not immediately blocked. It's an opportunity to hear. And then what you do with that information is totally up to you.
Right.
And that's what I look at with our children and with teenagers is I'm going to give you the information that I see, understand, and have had experience in so that you then can make a decision, an informed, that's probably the way, an informed decision. You've got as much knowledge as I can give you, and I may encourage you to get more, to ask other questions and to seek sources like in prayer, to seek for information. In the scriptures, seek for information. In good books, seek for information so that you have a well-informed decision.
Absolutely. So back to the story of our teenage daughter coming down the stairs,
dressed in something
that's a little
I'm like,
shocking.
Whoa. What I decided to do, and gratefully, and this is one thing, Jami and I are very sensitive to sharing that we're the role models, because we're not. We just give it a shot. I mean, we're trying just like you are, which is why we look to a lot of other people as well and how they've raised their children. And we feel that we want to pass on what we've learned, knowing that we still, even though we've raised 7 children, our last 2 teenagers at home, we still have so much to learn.
And I think, I think that it's important to recognize that as I start to look at my children now raising children, is to recognize that though I have raised children and I've had 7 babies, I haven't had babies at this time of life. Like life has
really
changed.
Good. Yeah.
Things have changed. So there are principles that are the same throughout the raising of families and that will be the same. But there's also application of those principles that changes, because when I was raising my children, we didn't have cell phones and social media, whereas now it's an absolutely prominent part of raising children. There are principles that guide us in raising those children, but the application, I don't know everything that they're going to encounter.
Yeah.
So again, asking questions. I can't emphasize enough how important it is to have this balance of recognizing experience, but also the need to constantly be asking questions to understand.
That's really good. I like that a lot, because the times they are a changing. You look at the amount of digital communication that we have and how that's now even evolving now as we are, in the twilight of raising children and in the dawn of grandchildren. I see artificial intelligence is going to catapult us into a whole new era.
Absolutely.
And already has. I mean, catapult us into a whole new area of access and information and the opportunity to gather in these large language learning models, gather information and to present it in a way that it's palatable and that it can be consumed. All of that is information, is what I never grew up with. And our children now are raising their children in this environment. Mm-hmm. And so the application of principles is going to be different, but the principles remain the same, which one of the principles we're talking about is direct, honest feedback communication and giving knowledge so that the child, whichever it is, the teenager, can make an informed decision. Okay, so back to the story.
Yep.
She's coming down the stairs. All these thoughts have gone through my brain. What is it that I say? As she comes down, I say, what you're wearing today is as probably attractive to a 17-year-old. And I also want you to know that the 50-year-old janitor is going to be looking at you as well. And that immediately, she just kind of took a step back. And I said, so I just want you to be aware of what you're advertising. And is that what you really want to advertise? If not, you may consider change. If yes, then, wear that to school. Mm-hmm. But I want you to be informed and have as much information as possible to know that what you're advertising may be different than what you think you're advertising. And that a 17-year-old boy is going to notice you as well as the 50-year-old man. Is that what you want?
Right.
Do you remember this?
Yes, I do.
She changed.
I think she said, "Oh, gross, Dad."
Right. Just want to let you know.
There's a lot there.
There's a lot that you're showing. And
So-
she changed. Now,
I
whether or
wanna-
not, but here's let me just one more thing and then I'll let you go. Whether or not she changed, I truly believe it was really up to her. I was not trying to manipulate her to go change her clothes. So if she would have walked out the door with that outfit on, I'd been like, okay, she's had all the information and knowledge she needed in order to make a decision. And that is what she wanted to go forward with. Now, she may have had an experience in that day where she said, you know what, I never want to wear this again. Or she may have gotten the attention that she actually wanted and therefore would have continued to wear something like that, which is a continued conversation as far as, okay, well, what is it that you want to accomplish in life and how do you want to get there? All of those things can come about. And it was done without any contention. There was no conflict. I wasn't forcing her to maneuver or to change how I wanted her to change or what I thought was going to be best. It was a conversation that we were able to have, and we enjoyed it together. Now, she did change, and I was happy about that. Let's just be honest. I was very happy about that. And it was done with no contention.
I think and we've talked about this, you and I have talked about this amongst ourselves, not necessarily on a podcast, because you by nature and personality are a very direct person, sometimes so direct that I've been uncomfortable with it. You say things so just no,
candidly.
So candidly. But I've come to appreciate that there's a reason that works in our family and in our one, because that's how you are. But the second thing is that there's a second component that you have that allows you to be that candid with our children. And that component is that you deeply believe in your heart of hearts that our children are good and that they want to do good things. And that if their actions are not aligning in a way that if it looks like their actions aren't aligning with what we feel who they are, there is a reason they're acting that way. And it's not just always pushing boundaries. Sometimes it is. And I guess my
what does that mean though?
Comment to that is,
right?
Asking questions and exploring are okay. And it's candid conversations that we're not afraid to have and when I say candid conversations that we're not afraid to have, I don't want it to look like it has to be a sit down and we're going to have a awkward candid conversation. It's in the car, it's in the moments, it's circling back to something that you said and you're like, I've been thinking about this all day and I feel like I totally said it wrong. Can we talk about what I really meant, because I've had time to think about it and I want you to understand that though these are the words I said, this is what was behind those words, or this is why I'm nervous about this situation, or just candidly being honest with our children and helping them to recognize that the true core of everything we're doing is because we absolutely love them. And we're doing the best that we can as parents. And eventually they will find out it'll be both a good and a bad thing that you're just a person and that you were just doing the best you could too. And they will recognize that now they're a parent and they're just a person doing the best they can.
Mom and Dad did that. That was wrong. I'm like, yeah.
And there'll be things that they'll be like, oh, that's why they said that. I'm so glad they did that. Because we learn and grow together. But being able to have this, so our takeaways for today were one.
Hold on, before you do takeaways.
Okay.
I just had one other thing that I wanted to say as far as candid, being candid.
Yes, I didn't.
The other reason that I'm candid, and this goes back to what you were talking about with covert communication, is because I believe inherently not only are they good, but they're strong.
Yes.
That they can handle the conversation. And what that means, because I believe that inside, it comes out in my speech. And my speech is completely as candid as it needs to be. Now, candid does not mean mean or spiteful or manipulative or rude. It means clear words that communicate.
Yes, clear words that communicate. That's great. I love that. Candid means clear words that communicate. Uh-huh. Wow, there's even alliteration with that, Jeff. Nice job. I'm going to remember that one. What does it mean to be candid? To be clear, to communicate clearly. And I
Clear
think
words that communicate, and that you gain that,
and that assumption underneath of strength that you are strong enough to handle this conversation. You are strong enough to agree or disagree with me. You are strong enough to have your own opinion. You're strong enough to learn from that opinion and maybe eventually change that opinion. All things that we go through on a continual basis as adults.
Absolutely. And still, as adults today, as far as interacting with one another. And I still work on my candid communication and my own insecurities, the things that I feel that I want to protect because I'm insecure in specific areas. Receiving candid feedback sometimes is difficult, but I appreciate the person who does it because they assume strength on my side and that we can have this candid conversation. You were going to go into the points that we basically have learned, and there's so much more that we could talk about in this particular regard. I want to circle back just before you summarize the points to the idea of, and this is something for a different podcast. You weren't going to bring it up, but I am going to bring it up because you said it so good, and I know it can be misinterpreted, and I know that we have to. she's
I'm rolling my eyes because I'm like, we talked about this.
I know we talked about this, and
you're still going to bring it up.
But you said it in such a way, like just now, because you genuinely love your child. You're at the core of, I genuinely love you and I genuinely see you as strong. I'm going to give you the information that is necessary for you to be able to make as informed a decision as possible. I'm going to give you everything that I know to be able to make as an informed decision as possible. And as teenagers, those are great conversations. You said love, that genuine love. I think that there's one other thing that can happen in a teenage relationship that can cause difficulty, and this is, Jami said this, is it, do I want them to know that I love them, or is it that I want them to love me? Those are two different ways to approach something, and it's not that we don't want to have love back and forth, but the motivation, the intention behind what it is I'm doing, the action I'm taking with this particular child or children, is it motivated because I love them, or is it motivated because I want them to love me? Are you going to say anything on that?
I have a lot to say on it, which was part of why I was like, another podcast.
We'll do it on another podcast. Maybe just give a little bit, and then we'll talk about it on another podcast.
I think the core foundation of what you're saying is to look at our motives. And this is something that as a parent, I feel like you have to do a lot, because there's a lot.
Do you feel like you've had to do that a lot? I mean,
yes.
At yourself and say, what is my actual motive here?
And sometimes part of that motivation is, I didn't get to do things in my teenage years that my kids are now getting to do, and I want to live vicariously through that. I want to revel in that. And it's something that I think as parents we need to be careful of. I think sometimes it's recognizing that the way that our children feel, like literally the way they feel, may be different than the way I feel. And by that I mean, I may do things or not do things because I'm secure in an area or insecure in an area. And your children could be the exact opposite. They could be completely secure in an area, you're totally insecure. And they could be completely insecure in an area where you're very secure.
I say that's weird because I'm like, and how many times we said this? They were raised in the same home,
family,
with the same parents, with the same principles and the same almost application.
Which is why I come back to the fact that each child is their own person. And there are lots of people exploring this, but one of the main people recognizing who they are is themselves. And one of your job as a parent is to also learn who they are, but to help them discover who they are, not to predetermine who they are based on your preconceived notions, based on your past experiences in your own family, based on all of your hopes and dreams of what you want them to be, because maybe that's what you wanted to be, but it hasn't worked out, or it has worked out and you want all those same joys for them. All of those things, it's not bad to want to have dreams and ambitions for our children, but it's important that they have the dreams and ambitions that they want, and that we help them discover what those are. It may end up being that some of our dreams align, and yeah, we can share in that. In fact, I think there will be things as parents that align, that we it's our responsibility to find what things do we have in common that we can share, but to not be afraid of the things that you don't have in common, and to let them explore those things, and to recognize that there are a lot of decisions that I have to look at my motive. Is this because I'm doing this out of love and it's the right thing to do, even though it's hard? Or am I doing this because I really need them to love me right now? Like, I need to feel secure in that.
Yeah.
And I can make wrong.
Which is a lot of the reasons why you have a dog.
Yeah, that's true. A dog gives you love no matter what.
No matter what. I mean, you could treat that dog like a piece of crap, and he's going to come back
Not
to you
that
and
we're
be
saying
like,
you should. No.
No, I'm not.
But a dog loves you.
That's
no
a lot
matter.
of reasons why sometimes people are like, I don't want children. I just want a dog. Because that
You
dog
can tell
gives
the dog they look
unconditional
mangy.
love.
You can tell your dog, you look kind of mangy, and they'll come up and give you love. You tell your daughter that, and it's not going to be the same.
It's not the same. But that is for another podcast. Finishing off this, what are the 3 points that you had?
3 points that I had is, 1, recognize that your child is their own person. And
that'll
they have
make
thoughts
teenage
and
years
feelings.
so much
Yes.
better.
No, and that your part of your job and part of the excitement and the thrill of being a parent is finding out who they are. Like, with them, going along with them to be like, what do you like? What do you not like? Exploring, getting into something and thinking, oh, they love it. And then they change their mind and you're like, oh, okay, I guess you don't love it. That's okay. We'll figure that out. So recognizing that they are their own person, not just an extension of you. 2, having an underlying recognition that your kids want to be good. And
Do
that
good
if
things,
they want
be
to
good,
do good things, they
progress,
want to be a good
make great
person.
choices in life.
And if things are not in harmony with that, there is a very valid reason they are making the choices they are making. And that as a parent, if you can develop a level of trust, and over time, you can understand why they're doing the things they're doing.
It's kind of like what you said with a 2-year-old. The reason they're screaming and crying is not just because they're screaming.
They're just
and crying.
not trying to annoy you.
There's
a
something
valid
happening.
reason.
There's a valid reason. A newborn, someone who can't communicate at all except through a cry.
Right.
There is a valid reason as to why they're doing it, not just for annoyance.
And so asking questions and listening and validating that the things that they are feeling, though to you sometimes may seem trivial or stupid or very temporary, to them right now, it's absolutely real. And that makes it real.
Yeah.
And recognizing that. And then I think the third thing is, don't put yourself between you and the issue that you're working. Put yourself in a position of standing next to your teenager and working through it together, not between you and the decision they're making. And the way that you do that is by recognizing that my job is to give you the knowledge. Now, I say these things simply, but I want you to know that they take a huge amount, just being totally honest, of prayer and self-evaluation and trial and error, and a lot of being willing to go back to trying to communicate, asking questions again, giving it a try, and honest, candid communication.
One of the things that you've done, though, through the years, and thank you for those 3 points, because as I've watched you interact with our children through the years, you have strived diligently to do that. And when you haven't done it as well, and this is, I think, another parenting principle that is significant, you've asked for forgiveness.
Yeah.
You've said, you know what, I blew that. And there's been many times when I blew it. And I went back to 1 or 2 child and said, you know what, I blew that. And I apologize.
And times that I've had to go back and say, I feel like I know what the right thing is here, but you feel so differently. And maybe I'm missing something. I don't understand completely.
That's really good.
Opening those lines for communication, but having this underlying assumption that your children are their own people and they want to make good decisions and they have strength and they have the ability to do that.
Yeah. Thanks so much for listening today. Hopefully, we were able to communicate clearly what it is we feel in regards to raising teenagers. We've loved it. It's been so much fun, and there is so much to look forward to. We could tell you about all the fun family vacations that we've had, the many different activities that we've had in our home, of many other teenagers coming over, and how much fun that has been. All of
All
that.
to the point of saying it can be a lot of
It
fun.
can be a lot of fun if I'm not striving to control their life and to control what it is they do and bring about a lot of contention. So we'd love to hear from you at any point in time. Shoot us an email at Jeffrey, Jeffery, at mystreaksapp.com or
Jami, Jami, at mystreaksapp.com.
until we talk again, we hope that you have a marvelous, fantastic, wonderful day. And as always,
Keep streaking.